She introduces me, though, to her friend, who has made her very forward-thinking. And this friend takes to me very well. I think her name is Julie.
Julie.
And Julie is the one who begins to help me understand the process of self-discovery, of all of who I am, and how I'm so much more than the circumstances around me.
Tell me more about what you discovered.
She helps me discover some experiences I had had before this life.
How do you go about doing that?
She is able to put me into a trance with a candle. And I have to stare at the candle while she says certain things. And all of a sudden, things will appear in my mind. And she guides me through them.
She guides you through them.
And I see what has happened, and that this is not my first time on this earth, nor my last.
Is there anything interesting that you see that stands out to you?
Yes. I was a very powerful head of an ancient group of people in the South Pacific.
In the South Pacific?
I keep seeing this orange glowing ball appearing before my eyes right now as I talk about it.
Tell me more.
Or maybe that's just the flame. She helped me remember what happened to me and my child.
And your child? What happened to your child?
Everybody drowned.
Everyone drowned?
I had one daughter. I came from a matriarch culture where the women are not born of men. There is a process of fertilization that is done, of artificial insemination, but the women are never touched directly by the men.
And why is this?
It is the tradition. It is how you continue the line of our people.
So that's how you continue the line of your people?
This was my child, my only child. And she would inherit everything. And then I encountered another race of people who came seeking the powers that we held.
What type of powers did you hold?
We held very ancient powers that had been handed off from generation to generation from an earliest civilization of people who came to colonize this planet.
So people that came to colonize this planet?
Yes.
What type of people?
These were people from elsewhere.
From elsewhere? From a different planet?
Yes.
From this planet?
And we had passed down these traditions. We were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, strong in numbers. We had everything.
You had everything.
It was the most beautiful existence. We had a very fair society. People progressed. It was a constant state of enlightenment in our own beautiful world.
And what type of powers did you possess? Or was that the power?
I was able to manipulate the energies of crystals in order to communicate with our ancient ancestors.
And how did you do that?
In our cave, we have a altar that had been built many, many years before. Years are not the right words. Eons before. And in them are different ranging sizes of red crystals.
Mm-hmm.
And after meditating and placing your hands on them, you could channel this energy, and you could see things that had happened, and you could see things that could happen, but they never warned me. There was never a warning.
Who never warned you?
The crystals did not tell me. I felt misled.
You felt misled. So the crystals will communicate with you?
Perhaps it was the manipulation of those wanting the crystals. I don't know for sure just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But they killed all of my people, every one of them. They were all floating face down in the water. They were able to create a massive explosion in the water. Several. They destroyed our civilization and took me.
They took you because you were the leader?
And when I tried to explain this to other people, nobody believed me.
So when, after Julie helped you with the candle, you tried to tell other people about this experience?
I thought maybe if this was something that came out of me and I had no idea, then maybe there was more to the story behind other people. But they were all phony.
They were phony?
They pretended to be interested and then worked to have me committed.
So people plotted against you to have you committed?
I was just looking to fill in the puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I was really breaking through, and they took it from me.
And they took it from you?
They took it from me.
And what were you working on when they took it from you?
I needed to know why I had been saved and everyone else around me had died.
Did you find out?
I believe I was a prisoner.
You were a prisoner
by the people who did this massacre.
In the South Pacific?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you were a prisoner?
For a majority of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself as an old woman with gray hair, still in the house they kept me in.
What did this house look like? Could you describe it for me?
It was a home. It was more of an apartment style and a high-rise building that had maximum security.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way out. And it was a little rudimentary on the inside, very basic, nothing too extravagant.
Anything interesting that you see that stands out to you?
Outside the window, I sit by the window and watch them.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have vehicles that can float in the air.
They float in the air?
They do.
Mm-hmm. Do they go fast?
They go very fast.
Mm-hmm. Is this surprising to you?
No, I remember being here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very dreary and depressing place, and it's something I don't like having to relive all the time.
Something you don't like having to relive all the time? Mm-hmm. So you had to stay there for the rest of your life?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They took me out on a few occasions.
What did they do with you when they took you out?
They tried to extract the information from me, from my mind. They wanted to know how to manipulate the energy to contact the others.
So they wanted to contact a different planet?
They believed that they were destined to make this contact and to receive more knowledge on how to further their technology and their domination. And they believed I was the only being left that would possess this information. And if they killed me, it was gone. So they just thought they'd outweight me.
They thought they would outweight you.
Yes, they thought I would break.
Did you ever break? Did they ever learn?
I believe I was there for almost 60 years.
60 years.
A prisoner.
As a prisoner.
I wanted to die, but I could not.
You couldn't?
There was no one else to give the information to, and if I gave it to them, it would be a devastation for the world. I needed to leave it somewhere. It couldn't die with me.
It couldn't die with you.
And it was the only reason I couldn't die. I wanted to. I wanted to be with my child. I wanted her back.
But they killed everyone with an explosion in the water.
It was a tidal wave. It was an atomic type device that they set off in strategic places, in rifts under the ocean. They do have devices that operated like submarines, and they placed them, acting as they were our friends. And then the wave came.
Tell me about this wave. Did they take you off first?
No. At first, I was with many others on the beach, looking at where the water had gone. We couldn't understand where the water was pulling out from. And fish were flopping, and everyone was just standing around looking, wondering. And then I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I saw the wave, and it was massive. It was the size of... It's just... You've never seen anything so big in your life. And there was a rock cliff in front of me. And I begin to climb as fast as I can climb while everyone just stands there frozen.
What about your daughter?
She's not on the beach. She's back at the palace.
And what happened next?
I make it to the top. I am still running and running and running. They want to keep me alive. They want me to see their power and how they could destroy everything as they told me they would if I didn't do what they wanted. But I would not believe them. I believed our numbers were greater and we would win. I had no idea. My child was swept into something, and the back of her head was impaled onto something sharp, and that's how I found her, face down in the water with something lodged into the base of her skull.
So you found her. When did you find her?
That was the first place I ran. I knew where she was.
So what happened after you found her?
I don't know why I was able to outrun it and nobody else. I feel like they almost put me in like a bubble or something that made me witness it, but not really even get my feet wet.
So they did that so that you would witness it, and then did they take you?
They did.
How did you feel?
I could see as they took me away the hundreds of thousands of bodies and debris all in the water. There's nothing recognizable left. And in just a minute it was all gone. Everything was destroyed.
What kind of thoughts are going through your mind?
Grief. Overwhelming grief. Screaming grief pouring out of you. It's not a very good feeling.
Yes. Where did they take you?
They take me back to their island.
Their island?
They have an island, and it's very sophisticated and very advanced.
Tell me more about that.
They are tall people. They are very pale. I think they are very ugly. They're very shrewd. Many of them have very light silvery hair. There is a very negative competitive nature on this island.
A negative competitive nature.
People are not very friendly. They are not very helpful towards each other. They are very competitive. They're just not very happy people.
They're not very happy.
No. It's a horrible place.
It's a horrible place.
For me. I was very open and free and lived amongst beautiful nature. And this is the complete opposite. It's very gray and slate and metal and concrete. And you can't really see the sun.
You can't.
Not every day.
Why is that?
There is a fog that comes through.
Is that from their technology?
Yes.
So, you said they were very advanced. What other types of inventions did they have that you can see?
They had cooking apparatus that would allow you to cook things very quickly. There was a type of energy they used to focus on the food, and you could cook it very quickly. The medical technology was truly astounding.
What type of medical technology? Could they heal themselves?
They could perform full surgeries. They could manipulate organs and regrow them.
How did they do that?
They understood the usage and practicality of stem cell research and other types of medical practice that we are still not utilizing at this point in history.
So they were using stem cell research?
That was one of the bigger reasons they were able to get into the cloning of organs.
The cloning of organs.
So to prolong the life of the individual. They wanted to live forever.
They wanted to live forever. So would you consider them scientists then?
That would be the nicest way to describe them.
What about, were they spiritual in any way?
No. It was a different type of spirituality, though. I can't say no completely, but it was not what I would consider spiritual. There was a deep obsession with the unexplainable phenomena associated with certain crystals. They could not remember how to communicate with their ancestors.
And with their ancestors, you mean people from a different planet?
The people who seeded them here on this planet, the originating planet.
And who was that?
They came from another planet that had already completed its evolutionary point. And when those people came to colonize, the need and the lack of it was so great that it drove them to become these very cold, calculating people.
But you had the knowledge. You knew how to communicate with your ancestors as well, with crystals?
I believe now we thought it was our ancestors and the dead who had departed, but I was definitely able to channel into another realm, perhaps even communicate through a wormhole to those who we had originated from.
But you were mistaken as far as what you believed at the time? You thought you were communicating with someone else?
Our dead ancestors, those who had come before us, the women who had ruled our tribes before.
But really you were communicating with the people who seeded you?
Or even those before.
Or those before.
There was a direct channel to another planet or realm there. And that was truly what we were tapping into, but we were not aware. Talking to the dead is what they used to call it.
Who used to call it that?
My grandmother.
Your grandmother.
I will talk to the dead today.
Is she the one that taught you how to do everything?
She taught me many things while my mother was in power. My mother taught me many things. They were very nurturing, beautiful women. Powerful.
What was the most important lesson, do you feel, that she taught you?
It's the way to treat people and how to relate to them.
Tell me more about that.
A good ruler cannot hold themselves above their people and expect their people to obey and worship just because they are standing above. It is something you must earn and something you must embody, something you must create within yourself that makes people relatable to you and allows them to open their hearts to you being their leader. They want to be led. They just want to know that this is the right direction to be led.
Were you able to do that?
I was.
So with all this knowledge, when they took you to this other island, did you end up dying with it, or did you pass it somehow to someone else?
I did.
You passed it on?
I did something very tricky.
What did you do?
I had a young girl in the later years of my life who was sent to take care of me, to help me, to cook for me. 14, maybe 15 years old. She was from a lower class family, not as well respected. She had no desire to gain the respect of those around her. She saw it differently. She saw it with clear eyes what her society was. And we developed a very deep friendship. And I bestowed on her everything I could.
How did you do that?
There is a transfer of energy that you can do. And within this, I gave her my memories and the path to connecting with the crystals back to that realm.
So the path to connect.
I gave her my blood. I remember my blood. I had to give her my blood in something.
What did she do with your blood?
She wore it around her neck and left. I made her leave. I sent her away on a mission and told her not to come back for any reason and to go as far as you could. Now that it had been transferred, I was ready to complete the rest of my mission.
And what was your mission?
I was going to blow the entire civilization up.
You were going to blow the civilization up? How?
I told the leaders I was ready to die, and I was ready to pass on the information. So I simply gave them the wrong information, and within it, their crystals misfired and caused the most beautiful explosion.
It caused an explosion?
It blew the entire civilization off the map.
Where did this civilization go? It just blew up into thin air?
Blew into the sea and shook and burned.
Mm-hmm.
And they let me watch it from above.
Oh, so you watched it from above?
I was dead, but I watched it from above.
How did you feel?
Self-righteous.
Mm-hmm.
I felt complete. I felt good.
And what do you mean the crystals misfired? That you had them...
The technology they had sought from me was bomb-making technology in order to control other civilizations that they knew of from their explorations and to control their resources. To threaten one with these bombs would mean immediate surrender. I simply gave them the calculations for something that would not misfire on someone else, but would explode before they ever had a chance to use it.
Okay. And so they were able to blow themselves up.
I died as the explosion happened, the initial one. It does begin there.
It does begin there.
And
tell me more.
It does. I know she is gone, and she has taken it north. She's taken the information very far north. I told her to go until she saw snow. And when she saw snow, she would be safe.
So she took this information to a different continent?
To what you would call Northern Europe now. And it stayed there, was circulated around many people.
And what happened next with this girl?
She passed the information down to her children. And the legends of Norse gods stem from this.
The Norse gods' legends stem from this. Was it infiltrated into society at all? Or did it get lost?
It eventually got lost. And I'm one of those left that still has the memory.
So when Julie was pulling this memory from this candle, how did it make you feel?
It made me understand a lot better the feelings and the dreams and the loneliness and the isolation I felt in that life too.
So you had carried the same experiences in that life?
Heavily.
Why? Why is that? Was it because you had the memory, or was it something?
Once the memory was found, it felt better, it felt lighter, it felt safer. But it helped me understand why I had felt like I was hiding my whole life up until then, or had to hide. Felt like I was always in hiding, running away from.
So you were afraid because you didn't want the same experience?
Yes.
When you reconnected with that memory, were there certain abilities that you had with this new memory? Could you call upon this ability within you?
Things started to get a little weird at that point.
Tell me more.
I started just seeing things clearly for what they really were. The facades around me, the society that I was living in, it just was breaking away every day. And I felt that I needed to communicate this to other people, that they were just, in their own way, enslaved to this concept of everyday life around us. And if there was something more there for me that was causing this pain, there was something there for others as well, and they needed to encounter what it was.
Mm-hmm. And did you go about sharing this knowledge before you were committed?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to explain it to many people, but most people do not want their worlds disrupted.
Did anybody listen to you? Did you change some people's lives?
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the lasting effects of that.
You didn't?
I felt
You felt what?
the sting of being labeled crazy,
Mm-hmm.
which makes you want to hide again.
Mm-hmm. So people told you were crazy,
Mm.
and then was it right after that you were committed?
I think there was a couple of years where I really did try to uncover and to go further into it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I was very old when I threw myself off the bridge.
How old does the body feel when you did that?
I don't even think I was in my 30s yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like my late 20s.
Well, it makes sense because you didn't want to go through another lifetime of captivity, isolation, and that type of control once again.
There are very big repercussions for when you decide to end your preconceived existence.
Tell me more about that. So you were faced with repercussions after this?
Suicide is a demerit.
And who's holding the points?
There is a massive system, a universal system of what it looks like in my mind is taking a rock and putting it in a tumbler, and the tumbler creating this experience of tumultuousness for the rock, but when it comes out, it is a beautiful, polished stone of much more use and advancement. And when you stop the process, it causes things to go a little haywire.
Oh. Well, what were you supposed to do instead of committing suicide?
I needed to spread this information to people,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the easy way.
Mm-hmm. Did you find this out right after you left the body?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You find it out almost before you leave the body. You feel it. You feel the regret right before they snatch you out of it.
No, you feel the regret before they snatch you.
You recognize it just at that last split second, and then they pull you out of that body.
Mm-hmm. So as you're leaving your body, tell me everything that you become aware of.
It feels like someone with a big hand grabbed me,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of grabbing all of me, they only grabbed part of me.
Mm-hmm.
So part of you still falls, and you know, but there's still something like grasping you and dangling you and pulling you upwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of just float there.
You just float there.
And it's almost as if it's like a download immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You start processing what's just happened
Mm-hmm.
and everything that's led up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to realize that you may have just made yourself have to do this all over again.
So did you decide after that to do this all over again?
It was always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you fail to complete something you have agreed you wanted to complete, you will continue to redo it until you have completed it.
Mm-hmm. So did you decide to complete this in Jen's lifetime or differently?
This is the next one.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of problems does Jen have? from having to repeat this over again?
There was never the relief of that feeling of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was created as a permanence in many ways, to remind that this is not the path to take.
What's not the path to take?
Suicide.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
The path must be to encounter who you are and to uncover what you have been hiding for hundreds of thousands of years, and to share it and to allow the evolution of this planet to continue with this information.
So is this what Jen has decided for her life?
It has always been her path.
Mm-hmm. It has always been her path. So, before we contact the subconscious, let's close that scene. These lifetimes, for her to see, why did you pick these lifetimes and what are you trying to tell her?
She needs to understand there is a larger contract that has been created through many of her lives that still must be fulfilled.
And what is this contract?
She must embrace this new way of being. It is the only way to go full circle to once what we were, to what we once were. And to understand who we truly are is to dive into this and to embrace it and to not fear the ostracization that comes along with it.
So she has to really dive into this? And by this, do you mean the knowledge that she holds within herself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And is that her purpose that she created for this lifetime?
Yes.
So what is she supposed to do then? Tell people about it?
She must find a way to explain this to people in a way that is comfortable for her, that brings her strength instead repercussion and labeling of crazy. She must find it within herself and make it, as a good leader, relatable to those who would like to follow in the same direction.
And how should she best go about doing this?
Through her writing.
Through her writing. She says she wants to write a book. Should she write about this?
She should write many books.
She should write many books.
Many.
Does she have someone helping her with this?
There is more than one entity helping her with this. There are so many that it may be overwhelming at times.
So there are a lot.
Many. And much experience through many lifetimes that are all combined to bring this further.
So many experiences that are combined to bring this further.
Yes.
So how should she start writing? Is there a best way for her to start this process?
There needs to be an opening of a channel that is blocked. She's only able to get drips and drabs of information through it. But if the channel is opened and cleared out, the information will come very steadily and readily.
Well, can you unblock this channel right now?
It will take some work. It had been blocked for reasons.
Oh. What are the reasons?
she felt that this opening was what caused her destruction, and has put a very tight block on it so she would not be condemned in this life.
But does she need this block in this life?
No. She knows that too.
She does.
It is there out of habit.
But she needs it to be unblocked in order to write. So can you unblock it?
Yes.
What kind of benefits will this?
It will allow the information to flow freely from our side to her side. And it will allow her to understand the bigger picture of how the story must be placed. Actually,
what civilization did you think that was?
It's not there anymore. I don't think anyone really even has much record of it. But it was huge and it was strong. It was at least 1 million people strong.
Wow.
And it was in the middle of the South Pacific, and it's gone. And we were very dark brown reddish people with very, very curly hair, very curly hair, and
like Aborigine looking, or
even darker. And there was a weird type of lizard-like aspect to our bodies. There was something that we had evolved from I guess our original planet, that was very similar to some of the structures I think of like lizards. There was something lizardy or snaky to it. I can't.
Did it have? Did you have like a snake face?
No, I wouldn't say it was like we did look very human in that aspect, but I think there was something a little bit different about us. Maybe I think it was something in the skin. It keeps going back to the skin. Perhaps there was something very defensive in the skin, or something that allowed us to blend into our surroundings and kind of mimic that. That seems to be the right idea of what I'm getting.
Wow.
And some type of shared ancestry in that area. And there were a few who survived.
Where did they go?
They were just people on the outskirts of society that did make it. And there are many cultures today that you see that have derived from that.
Wow.
And it was something that was very clear coming across, but I couldn't get it out before. That they didn't all die.
They didn't.
But they did forget.
They did forget where they came from.
They had to. I think it was such a devastating thing.
Do you feel like, I mean, your higher self said this was your purpose, was to get this information out. And through your writing.
If there were 1 million people who died at that point, I'm sure there's 1 million people out there now that could relate to this.
Yeah.
Who may have had it somewhere in the back of their minds their whole lives, that this was something they went through as well.
Right.
People who may not even be open to this concept right now, that could understand this and hear it or see it and say, or read it, and say, no, this was something I was at too. This was a point for me.
Right.
And maybe a triggering point for us now.
Maybe. I mean, so much of the information that was coming through was really interesting. I mean, what about that civilization where you were kept prisoner? Do you have any idea what that civilization was?
They were a very far distance away. They were more in the Atlantic Ocean, around the Mediterranean region, close to Europe. And
did you think it was like Atlantis? Or
like close to where you would think Easter Island is now, somewhere around there. And it was very big, and it's gone now. And I think, from what I understand about what we believe Atlantis to be and where it could have been, yes, but these were not very nice people. These were
pretty
mean and ruthless and willing to do whatever. So I guess the whole allure of Atlantis is kind of jaded a bit with me.
Right. Well, I mean, I've heard that Atlantis was destroyed with crystals.
It was.
And this civilization was destroyed with crystals.
Some nice work there, wasn't that?
Yes, nice going.
I waited 60 years to blow that place up until it was gone. There is this image of this crystal that always comes before me, that is a big round red stone. And it's multifaceted, like, so on the outside there's many cuts, and then there's another line on the inside, and it's many cuts, and then again and again. So it's just so many different like angles that when you turn it around, it's just like cut completely all around the top, little like just shavings, you know, like it's cut all around it. So it almost looks a bit like a, well, not really like a flower, but kind of like where you'd have all those different petals of like a marigold coming out. But it's not shiny. It's a very deep red, like a blood red.
Did it have its own consciousness? Do you still remember?
I don't think it had its own consciousness.
But you could communicate with it?
But it was a holder.
Oh.
It contained where we came from.
Oh.
The story of that and the essence of that and everything that had happened before then. It was like the last drop of it.